Welcome to TorontoTv. Today we have Wong from CFSO. She is the executive director of the CFSO. Today the topic is about the Hong Kong Pathway Immigration Program. Hi, Anna.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Yeah. Can you tell us about yourself first? All right, who you are, and then yeah.
Sure. My name is Dr. Anna Victoria Wong. I'm the Executive Director of Community Family Services Ontario. Our agency has been around Toronto, Ontario for over 35 years, serving mainly East Asian immigrants with mental health, family service, settlement services, and disabilities and special needs services. So in response to the recent socio-political turmoil that has been going on in Hong Kong since at least 2014, we, along with many other grassroots and community organizations, advocacy bodies, have been in constant dialogue with the federal immigration body, the IRCC, to introduce new ways to help import talents from this precious city where many are currently suffering from socio-political oppression or have physical or emotional injuries from brutality from law enforcement departments. So we, as we see this post-COVID economy being shifted into a place where there is labor shortage in many professions, where we cannot breed or train in local talents fast enough to fill these big gaps, we can do our best to import such talents from places where they are suffering the most to make this a win-win situation.
So, you look at, say, the Hong Kong Pathway Immigration Program. Who are eligible, and then any barrier they are facing?
The Hong Kong Pathway mainly has to do with anyone with the BNO passport or the Hong Kong SAR passport of 18 years or over, but no upper age limit, who has a degree or what they call a high diploma, which is the 2-year post-secondary college diploma equivalent in Canada, that is 5-year fresh from the day they submit for the first step of the Hong Kong pathway, which is the open work permit. So the policy was first announced in 2021 February time. So counting back 5 years from then would be the oldest graduates would be the 2016 February graduates who would be eligible for this first year of application for the OWP, 3-year open work permit. However, by the time the second step of the immigration policy came out in, let's say, I think it was May or June of 2021, it became clear that the first wave of applicants may or may not be eligible or are effectively immediately excluded from proceeding to the next stage of permanent residency. That is because by the time they finish the PR requirements of 1,560 hours of Canadian T4 income experience, they would effectively be, their degree or their graduation date would be effectively over 5 years old. But the PR requirement still stipulates that apart from the 1,560 Canadian work experience, their graduation date still needs to be 5-year fresh. So effectively, the oldest level of graduates by graduation date are effectively rolled out by the announcement. And at that point, many of those have already applied and many of those have already received approval. Some of them were already in Canada, but then they effectively, when they start their journey, they see the end of the tunnel, which is a closed door. So the barriers would be, for graduates from 2016 and 17, they need to find other ways to qualify for PR, such as the Canadian Experience Class or Express Entry or provincial nomination system. But the Hong Kong pathway has very different criteria, and the education level threshold, English language benchmark threshold, and age limit thresholds are very different between Hong Kong pathway and those other alternative immigration pathway. So to automatically assume that these people can go for other pathways to remain in Canada as PR, it is an oversimplified, idealistic way of thinking. Other barriers include such as, this wave of immigrants are very different from the previous waves of immigrants, such as my parents' generation or my grandparents' generation from the 70s, 80s, or 90s, where people had years to prepare and plan for their immigration and plan for their move. right? From aspects of finding a job, selling their house, as middle class families, how to place their children in schools and all of that. They had years. But this generation, most of them came alone as fresh grads. So they don't have the financial cushion of having worked 10 years of asset accumulated or real estate that they needed to sell, right? And they don't have generations of family to come with them. Most of them were in situations of family conflicts where different generations hold different political opinion. So most of them came alone to a country where they've never visited. They know no one as in no previous coworker, no friend, no family. So they're essentially here alone, relying on very limited information and bodies that they may or may not trust to tell them what is the right way to find accommodation, how to find jobs, how to get into the education system and whatnot. So these are, the mental health is a very important barrier against them thriving in our economy. So as much as this policy is to import talents to participate in our employment sector and to help increase in income tax payables, this population has temporary disabilities or trauma that poses barriers against their productivity. So our agency has been working with them before their arrival and after their arrival, and provided mental health and newcomer settlement, language and career services to many of them. And our professional insights and their user findings from their firsthand candidate testimonies tell us that they need time-limited services that they are currently not eligible for. So these time-limited services include newcomer settlement services, language training, career counseling services, as well as mental health and crisis intervention services. Interestingly enough, all of these services are funded by IRCC and provided by newcomer settlement agency, but only available for PRs and refugees, and lately to the Ukrainian pathway applicants. However, Hong Kong pathway applicants are excluded from these services. Therefore, we are asking the IRCC to not only extend the policy and expand eligibility to help those who, graduated earlier, but also make these applicants, foreign workers and foreign students, eligible for these services on a time-limited basis from a 3 to 12-month standpoint so that they can regain their social independence, financial independence, and become contributing and productive Canadian citizens sooner.
Okay. Do you have any numbers about how many Hong Kong pathway applicants, or also how many applicants fall into the 16 and 17 graduation period?
So currently, successful applications are about less than 30,000. So that tells us many, and based on our social media interaction with many, right? The number is disproportionate. It doesn't match up. I would say one more zero or two more zeros worth of people are interested in this program, but only maybe 30,000 of them have been successful with their applications. And in terms of what the percentage is that comprises of the 16 and 17 graduates, our user findings survey tells us it is 22% or more. So over 1/5 of this population or the pool of applicants are affected by the 2016-17 exclusion.
Mm-hmm. So according to what you said, that means some applicants are already in Canada and they are started working already. So in those like 16, 17 graduations, the government doesn't extend or expand that limitation. That means they just have the work permit working in Canada, and they can apply for PR. And in the end of 3 years, they have to leave Canada. Is that right?
That is correct. So it is usually a 3-year open work permit. So by the time their permit expires, they need to leave Canada unless they have other ways. So if they happen to have gotten married with a Canadian, then they would be a spousal sponsorship application, or they are able to find other ways such as the express entry or Canadian experience class or provincial nomination. Then they would be going through those pathways to stay in Canada. But again, many Hong Kong pathway applicants do not meet those thresholds. So many of them would not be able to make use of those pathways. And therefore, if our advocacy is not successful, or if RCC is not budging with the expansion of eligibility and the extension of the policy, then those people would effectively need to go home.
If I am the Hong Kong pathway applicant, can I take Canada government as preceding the applicants? Because by the time they apply this kind of Hong Kong pathway, and they believe that Canadian government is accepting them as immigration or applicants. Now that they are excluding them from the immigration circle, can they be say like misled them or cheated?
Well, based on my daily interactions with these people, from a personal basis, I would say there is a lot of disappointment, to be fair. Rightfully so. A lot of sense of disappointment. Some, think it is unfair, but, mind you, Canada is not a treaty-bound country with Hong Kong, right? So so to speak, it doesn't owe them anything. We're not obligated to provide. And permanent residency and citizenship is a privilege. It's not a right for anyone not born in Canada, right? So to give or not to give, it's totally up to the Canadian government. But as service provider directly funded by RACC, I would say it was an oversight or a miscalculation. So it's a calculation error that is easy to fix. And to fix it, you only bare minimum you can do is to just make 2016 Jan 1st to be the cutoff for all. So that would effectively re-include everybody that were eligible for the first step, right? So that's the absolute least they can do. But we're asking for, if you're genuine with importing talents that are ready, willing, and able to work, and helping those who were traumatized or victimized by exercising their freedom of speech and human rights in Hong Kong, then maybe think of including those who participated in the 2014 movements as well. And then using their logic of counting back, about 4 years as a degree, 4-year degree, right, from the date of, the protest, then it would be 2010 Jan 1st. So if they could make 2010 Jan 1st as the cutoff for all graduates going forward being eligible for this program, then Canada would win because we would import a lot of ready and willing and able talents to contribute to our economy. And Hong Kongers would win because many who are interested in exiting and leveraging the best pathway would be able to benefit. And all applicants will have their own individual deadline because, this is my application date and I count back 5 years. It's very confusing, even for RCC officers too, right? Why not make it simple for everyone?
You talk about the extended time to like 2010, something like that. Those people, they haven't applied it. They are not the applicant. But when we look at the 16 and 17 graduation people, they are already applicants, right? So that means when you say talking about the numbers, 30,000 Hong Kong pathway applicants, 20% of them fall into the 16, 17 graduation category. It's only 6,000 people, 6,000 applicants. When you look at, say, the ministers, let's say, for the last 3 years, Canada bring in 1.2 million immigrants. So 6,000 is at least okay. Do you agree? Yeah.
I would agree, and I would believe those are the people that our current immigration strategy are trying to import. So it would be a win-win situation. It is not a mercy situation. It is not a humanitarian situation. It's an economic decision.
Yeah. So as I say, 6,000 over 1.2 million is small numbers.
And it would help our economy. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So I think what you said, and we believe that those people need help from you and from the public in Canada. So that how do you think that? How are you optimistic this problem will be solved in the near future?
We are cautiously optimistic, right? Because we understand how IRCC operates, especially in the past and during the COVID years. There would be good news announcements, but those good news announcements would be very low impact, right? There are minor adjustments or retro adjustments, but the benefiting population would be very, very small. So if that's what they decide on, then, then effectively many more are still being excluded. And Canada is still being deprived of many more talents that could potentially be contributing to our economy. So let's hope they make the right decision to make 2010 Jan 1 or 2006 Jan 1 the cutoff date, to make it simple for all and provide time-limited support services for those people, for them to sustainably not only find a job, but keep a job to become productive citizens.
Okay. I'm from Hong Kong too. Thank you for your help for Hong Kong advocates. Maybe next time I'll see you and talk to you, bring us more good news. All right?
Hopefully, yes.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you so much for listening to us.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.